let's look at a real life example that we can graph and see how the graph helps us answer the question. It says a nutritionist has suggested that you take an additional 2,400 milligrams of iron over the next 6 months. 2 brands of vitamins supply the necessary iron, but brand A is more expensive. Brand A supplies 40 milligrams of iron in each pill, and brand B supplies 10 milligrams. How many of each kind of vitamin might you take? So what we're looking at is we want to take so many of brand A and so many of brand B to get our necessary 2,400 milligrams. But we're going to try to figure out how the cheapest as we can make it. So if we set up our equation here, we're going to take so many of brand A. I don't know how many, so we'll call that X. So every pill I take, every number I put in here, I'm going to multiply by 40 because that's the number of milligrams that comes with each one. Now brand B supplies 10 milligrams. So I'm going to take 10 milligrams times the number of those pills I take. Okay? So again, this represents the number of milligrams I get for every brand A vitamin I take, and this represents the number of milligrams I get total for every brand B vitamin. And I want that when it's all said and done to equal 2,400 because that's the total I need. So if we create our input-output table to graph, we can see the different combinations we can have. Okay. So we're going to have X's and we're going to have our Y's. So just like always, let's use intercepts to graph. I'm going to put 0 in for X. This becomes 40 times 0 plus 10Y equals 2,400. Now that cancels out, and I'm left with just 10y equals 2,400, so I'll divide both sides by 10 and get y equals 240. So the one intercept we have is the point 0, 240. Now let's do the same thing here for y. I'll put 0 in for y. So we'll have 40 times x plus 10 times 0, because I'm substituting 0 for y, and that needs to equal 2,400. In this case, this cancels out, and so I'm going to just divide both sides by 4. I'm sorry, this should be 40. Apologize for that. 40 times x from our equation here, plus 10 times 0 equals 2,400. Our 0 still cancels out, the 10, and we're going to divide both sides by 40. That gives us x equals 60. So now we have the point 60, 0. Now again, when we want to graph this, we have to be mindful of our scale. On our y-axis here, we're going to have to go up to 240, and our x-axis, we're going to have to go over to 60. Notice I've set up a graph here with only the quadrant 1. It doesn't make any sense in this situation here to deal with negative numbers, because we're not taking a negative number of pills at all. So that's I'm only focused on the quadrant 1, our positive quadrant. We have our x-axis and we have our y-axis. And remember we said along the x-axis we have to go up to 60. So maybe, I don't know, we could go, I have lots of lines here, let's see. Maybe we could go by 5, so this would be 10, 20, 30, I'm sorry, 10, 20, 30, every one of these blue lines here, 40, 50, and 60. Okay, and maybe going up in this situation, we need 240. I think we'll have enough room, oops, I apologize, for going up by 10. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, this is 100. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 200, and that should work. 10, 20, 30, 40, so that'll be 240. Okay, now to graph this, let's graph the point 0, 240. So 0 means we don't move left or right at all. Here's 200, 210, 220, 230, here's our 240. And we also have to graph 60, 0. So I move 60 to the right and 0 up or down. Okay. Now, if I draw my line through here, I'm not overly concerned whether you draw arrows through it or not, because again, in this situation, we're not dealing with negatives. This line represents all the possible combinations we could use. So we get our necessary requirement of 2,400 milligrams of iron. Okay, so, oops, I apologize, guys. I'm struggling to get this to go in the right spot. Okay, so what that means is every time it crosses, actually any point on this line is a solution. So all these here represent points. In fact, even these ones at the half represent points, because I guess you could cut the pills in half, but we're not going to get that involved. Okay, so what this means, like this point right here, is the point 10, 200. Well, remember, our X values represent brand A, and our Y values represent brand B. So I could take 10 of brand A and 200 of brand B. Okay, I'm sorry, yeah, 200 of brand B. I could come down here and I could take 50 of brand A and 40 of brand B. I could perhaps take 30 of brand A and 120 of brand B. Now the purpose of this graph and having all these different solutions is you could analyze which would be the least expensive, because remember, it does say brand A is more expensive. Okay, now this question doesn't ask it, but it just says how many of each kind of vitamin might you take. This line here represents all the different combinations, and from here you could choose, you could analyze which is the most cost effective, and that's why being able to create lines like this would be helpful in a real life situation. Okay. So again, using our intercepts, we were able to substitute 0 for x, solve for y, substitute 0 for y, solve for x, and get a graph of all the possible combinations we could have.